Welcome back to Against the Cage. My name is Jake Aryeh, your producer and host. We are currently still missing our colleague Scott Fontana, who is recovering from a procedure. Scott, wishing you all the best in your recovery. But I am joined here by my esteemed co-host Erich Richter. Erich, how we doing?
Scott, we're pouring one out for you, buddy. We miss you, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Erich, how are you?
Good. We need somebody to keep this podcast in check, keep it under wraps,
I
you
know
know.
it's like Dad's not home. The two of us
Yeah, we
running
need a
running
bunch
amok.
of wild kids in here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Speaking of wild stuff, we got some wild news this week of the James Krause, Jeff Molina, Derek Minner betting saga, which has kind of been going on for a while now, recently resurfaced. Essentially, the news is that Jeff Molina and Derek Minner have finally gotten their judgments from Nevada. But before we get into that, let's do a little bit of a recap for some of the fans who might not have been following this story for all these years. How does that sound, Eric?
Yeah, yeah. So I've been covering this story since it came out, right? 3 years ago, back in 2022, Derek Minner fought Shailene Nurembekov in a fight, and basically Derek Molina pretty clearly had an injury. Once the fight started, he threw one kick, went down, fell down, leg was injured. There was crazy line movement prior. The sports books had to pull the fight. You weren't even allowed to bet on the fight anymore. You had to pull the fight because there was a third party insurance company that said, there's sketchy betting going on here, and there's something irregular, so they had to pull the markets. And then Derek Minner goes out like that. You get a lot of questions, and then those questions ended up being correct. Yeah, there was some shady stuff going on in the betting world.
Yeah, so really quick, just because there's a lot there, let's break it down just a little bit. So, as you said, we've got Derek Minner taking on Shaylon Nerdenbecka in November of 2022. Derek Minner is one of James Krause's fighters. James Krause kind of like the center point of this whole thing. So the two of them were fighting on November 5th, and you were talking about the line movement. What did that look like on the day of?
Basically, what happened was there was a ton of betting that went on in this fight, where basically it opened up at minus 200. Minner was a plus 150 underdog. And then so it ended up that he ended up closing, big underdog, plus 330 is what he closed at. There was a lot of sketchy betting going on. Nerdenbecka hadn't really fought anyone, and he had TKO'd after that, but there was a ton of money that came in on him to win by knockout as well. And then there's also money that came in on him to on the fight not to go to decision. So those were like the three main bets. There came in on Nerdenbecki, they came in on by KO, and then came in on fight doesn't go to decision. And then Minner comes in, throws a kick, falls down. Even Dominic Cruz during the fight was like, you got to get a paycheck. If he's injured, because if you're injured, you don't get paid. I think that's the big part of it that people don't look at enough is if you don't if you're injured and you get injured in training camp, you're not going to get a paycheck. So Derek Minner, even Dominic Cruz said, well, I guess he just figured come in, see how it goes, and get a paycheck.
And
That's pretty much.
correct me if I'm wrong, but like that betting line movement, I mean, like you said, it got flagged, right? That betting line movement before the fight had even happened, like that's got to be setting off some red flags to people being like, "What's going on here?" Right?
Yeah, that it happens every now and then, but usually they don't have to pull the fight because it's so bad. But it seems like, from what it sounded like, the fight was getting bet so much on Nerdenbecki that they were forced to like keep moving the line, and then people kept betting on it regardless of what the price
Which is
was.
supposed to kind of like discourage you from doing that, and it
Yeah, you
still
would
was
think
happening.
there's supposed to be buyback.
Mm.
That's how betting works. They move a line, and then there's buyback, and then that's how you find the true line. But since there was no buyback occurring, then they flagged it. And I actually ended up talking to the books about this a couple years ago. So yeah, I even asked them. It was like basically that's what happened, was that there was no buyback no matter where they moved the line. It just kept going. Money kept flying in on him, so there had to be something.
Yeah. So suspicious, right? And that's before the fight has even happened. And like you said, literally within the first minute of the fight, he goes for a kick. I just rewatched the fight. He goes for a kick, stumbles, and then throws that same leg again. Like if you have an injured knee, and I don't know, it's a very weird thing to do. If you are injured, you probably wouldn't be throwing that kick right after you stumble on it. Goes down, gets knocked out in 67 seconds. So basically, what happens after that point?
So from there, the fight ends the way it does, and then the sports books start looking into it. Basically, like they dive in, they're trying to figure out what happened. The third party investigation is going on, and then the third party investigation turns into a Nevada State Athletic Commission investigation. Dana White, pretty much comes on stage like
they're going to go to federal prison. Federal prison.
Yeah, so that's where that quote comes from. And yeah, so basically that's the way it went up until now. Is I still don't know if the FBI is investigating it. I have requests in to get that question answered, so I'll let you know if I get anything on that. But basically the UFC and the Nevada State Athletic Commission announced that Derek Minner and James Krause, were basically, they knew that he was injured. He went in there with a pre-existing injury, which you're not supposed to do. Any injuries are supposed to be talked about ahead of time. And then, Jeff Molina somehow is a part of all of this. So he, having bet, knowing that Minner was injured, bet against him in the fight. So he gets suspended for, 3 years, 36 months, which is just, slap on the wrist.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what comes out this week. Basically, I can read them out, the punishments. Derek Minner, 29-month suspension retroactive to his last fight, November 5th, the one that we're talking about, and a $235 fine. And Molina, as you said, 3 years, 36-month suspension retroactive to June 4th, 2022, date of his last fight. That ends, funnily enough, November 5th of this year. And Minner's, if you did the math correctly, that was yesterday. So his suspension is up. And Molina, of course, a $235 fine. I mean, I don't know if you could tell from me reading this out, but it sounds, at least from a monetary standpoint, like if the FBI is like possibly getting involved in something like this, $235 is not a lot of money. I don't know. It seems like they could have probably done a little bit more to maybe make an example out of them. I don't know. What do you think about the decision?
I'm just going to call it what it is. It's an absolute joke. It's a travesty. And the Nevada State Athletic Commission should be ashamed of themselves. This is nonsense. The Nevada State Athletic Commission, they suspended Nick Diaz for pot for life. They suspended him for marijuana for life. This is questioning the integrity of the sport. Betting against somebody that is injured the integrity of the sport is totally up for grabs.
It's insider trading, yeah.
James Krause had a betting syndicate where he was giving out picks to people who were paying a lot of money for his betting advice. There's obviously really good because he has insider knowledge. He's a coach. So this is nonsense. The Nevada State Athletic Commission just it's one of a long lines of things that these athletic commissions do. Texas allowed Jake Paul and Mike Tyson to fight in a sanction bout. All right. We understand these athletic commissions are a joke. I've talked to a million people about it. They're a joke. They know they're a joke. They're just there to make money. They're there to host the UFC's fights. So the UFC pays them. That's it. Then they wipe their hands clean. It's a joke. It's one of the bigger jokes that they've ever had, and they should be ashamed of themselves. They're probably not. They're lining their pockets, but it's a joke.
And one thing that I do want to say with all that is that we forgot to mention, James Krause pretty much exiled from the sport. The UFC during all this said that any fighter who's under James Krause, promoted or coached by, would cease to be a part of the organization. So James Krause is now involved in real estate, not really doing too much MMA stuff anymore.
I'm friends with him on Facebook. I shot him a DM. He did not answer.
There we go. I don't know if he's trying to talk to too much press involved in the MMA space these days.
That's
true. That's fair enough. I'm not sure if we left anything out, Eric. Is there anything you want to say to round out this whole betting saga? One thing that we are waiting for, right, is the judgments have come out on Molina and Derek Minner. We're still waiting on Krause, correct? That's something that we're still looking to find out more information on, right?
I don't think Krause expects to ever coach or do anything involving MMA forever.
Of course.
One thing that we left out is that Jeff Molina claims that he only bet $500, and the Nevada State Athletic Commission had said that they were significant bets, but Molina said that they were $500 bets. So I'm interested to see if that is. I want to know if that's real. I want to know what's real, what's not. Because also Krause is betting through syndicates. Betting through syndicates means you're betting through other people. because you aren't able to get down the amount of money that you would want to, right? So if I'm a really big time bettor, I'm a very successful bettor, I'll go to the sports book, I'll put down, hey, I want to bet $50,000 on the Knicks tonight. And the $500 and then the $50,000 like, nah, we're not taking $50,000, we'll take five from you. So you take the other $45,000 and go to people who you know aren't good at betting, and then they're called runners. They run to the counter to bet the remainder for you, and then you give them a fee. So little information there. I'm not sure if that's what Molina did. I'm not sure if he was a part of that with Krause, but I think these are all unanswered questions that we're looking to get answers to.
Yeah, one thing that I do want to say is there's a lot of, theories and suspicious things with this whole thing, but as far as what is like factual in terms of, yes, they, there's not a lot of information about who found out the bets, placed the bets. There's a lot of theories about Kraus because he's got this, betting Discord that he had. So don't want to make any like claims about what happened exactly, but of course, all these questions are important to know and the background behind it.
Well, you make up conspiracy theories because you don't get any information from anybody, so you have to make stuff up. That's what happens when we don't get information for real.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, I think we're all set on the betting saga. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, cool. So some other news, unfortunate news, just a devastating story that is also a continuation of something that happened in 2022. As I'm sure many of you watching have heard, Cain Velasquez also got his sentencing for a 2022 incident for attempted murder. Now, if you don't know, in February of 2022, Cain Velasquez, of course, the former heavyweight champion of the UFC, found out somehow, or at least became convinced of the fact that his son, who was at a California daycare, I'm going to read out this exact term because I don't want to make any statements that this person is going to be serving their day in court. Cain Velasquez is now suing this man for lewd acts with his 4-year-old son. And upon finding out this information, or becoming convinced of this information, goes on an 11-mile high-speed chase, going after this individual with a gun, firing on the road at the car, actually striking one person in the vehicle, non-life-threatening injuries, but it was this person, Harry Goulart's stepfather, that was in the car. We don't have much information about how the actual car chase ends, but Cain Velasquez is then arrested by police, and he spends 8 months in jail, but he's eventually released in November 2022 due to the sheer nature of, because his son's involved in this individual. All around a really terrible situation. I mean, before we get into the sentencing, Eric, I mean, just any of your reaction to this information, like when it happened. Now, this whole thing's just been such a terrible thing for all parties.
For me, this is a bummer, right? Cain Velasquez is going to go to jail for a little while. With the way that the sentencing went, could have been worse. I think that he's counting his blessings right now that he's not going to be like, he could have gone to jail for life for attempted murder. So thought that the judge did a good job. I know that Dana White sent out, a note, like wrote a letter to the judge asking for a light sentence, talking about how good of a guy Cain Velasquez is, etc. So Cain Velasquez is a superstar. Cain Velasquez was the scariest guy on the planet for, like, honestly, a long time, like 5 years at least.
The thing is, that's like just the thing though, is like he looks like a scary guy, and he like has, obviously a crazy resume as one of the baddest men on the planet to ever live. But in reality, like, this guy is a sweetheart. I know I just talked about him doing what he did before, but I mean, you talk to any parent, a father, about someone trying to hurt their son and what they would do. A lot of them would probably give the same answer. The thing is, Cain Velasquez, he actually went out there and did it. And, speaking to him being a gentle giant and like the remorse that he showed, I'll read out a quote. He was on a podcast for his friend. I'll put the credit and the quote up right now. "I know what I did, and I know what I did was very dangerous to other people. Not just people involved, but innocent people. I understand what I did, and I'm willing to do everything I have to do to pay that back." And like you said, he really did get dealt a good hand with the judge that gave him his sentencing. Cain pled no contest, which, from my understanding of the law, is you're not pleading guilty, but you're not contesting. You're accepting all of the judgments that come and the consequences that essentially would come with a guilty plea. And the judge sentenced him to 5 years, but he was given credit for 1,283 days, which is around 1.5 years. But from what I've heard, if he's got good behavior, he could actually end up getting out earlier. So what do you think about that? Do you think that
Yeah. Well, Ariel Hawani said that he might even be out by the end of the year. With good, that's from what he had heard or whatever. So for me, like if he gets out by the end of the year, build back. You build it back up, right? Everybody's healthy, everybody's alive. Cain Velasquez is, a legend in the sport. If he gets out of jail, I'd love for him to do to get a walkout. Get a walkout for Cain Velasquez.
I feel like they absolutely would do that. Dana would get that sorted out.
Yeah, do it for a Mexico card. Just do it for us.
I could see that happening. But yeah, I mean, just to hammer it home one last time. I mean, it's hard for I'm not a father, and can already I know that what would be going through a father's head about, finding out that information. I couldn't imagine. So no one's gonna act reasonably if someone has hurt their child in a manner that, is alleged in this. And one thing that is important to note is that this person, Harry Goularte, he is going to be seeing his day in court this summer. So we'll see how that plays out.
Thoughts and prayers out for Cain Velasquez and his family, no doubt.
Yeah. Alrighty. So with that heaviness out of the way, take a little bit of a breather. Let's go back to this past weekend in London, England, at the O2 Arena. Eric, I'll let you take from here because I love the way that you break down fights. A little quick recap. What happened in that main event, and let's talk about what's next.
Leon Edwards got his doors blown off in the main event. The whole card was kind of a snoozer, honestly. The best fight in the card was Gunnar Nelson versus Kevin Holland. If you missed it, you didn't miss a whole lot, which is very surprising considering every London card prior, especially in the O2, has either lived up or exceeded expectations. This was odd, where the crowd seemed dull. They were tired, seemingly, and there was almost no finishes. For a lot of the card, there wasn't very many finishes. The best performance is by far Sean Brady. The rocket ship has launched. Sean Brady could be the face of the UFC, and Leon Edwards
Soon. Maybe not right now, but
I'm in, dude. I'm all the way in on Sean Brady.
all right. Wait,
He gets
care to elaborate?
okay. He gets finishes and he speaks English. Those are, and don't underestimate that. Think about how many. Who's the face of the UFC right now? It's probably Islam Makhachev. Because
I would argue it was Pereira. I mean,
doesn't speak English though.
I know, but I feel like he's an anomaly. I will give you that. He's an anomaly. Typically, the only two people that like kind of do that well is Charles Dubronx and Alex Pereira. But I will give you that. But yeah,
like if you look at like who is the biggest stars in the UFC, it's Islam Makhachev, it's Hamzat Chimaev, John Jones, obviously, but he doesn't fight enough. So until John Jones fights Tom Aspinall, I honestly don't want to hear it. Which
fair.
you won't. Which you won't. So for me, I'm looking at this like who can take the mantle as like a star in the UFC. I'm ready to give Sean Brady a title shot after that performance. Shavkat Rakhmonov doesn't speak English. The UFC should actually, and I know that this sounds ridiculous, but they should be giving preferential treatment to Sean Brady for getting finishes, and he talks really good trash. He's a good smack talker. That's big. He gets finishes and he talks good smack. And he speaks English. I think that's like that's what you like. Conor McGregor, when he was coming up, finishes amazing on the mic and speaks English. Like you look at you need that. Like an American star would be great. And Sean Brady, Philadelphia, savage grappler, can strike now, kinda. Like I'm pretty impressed with his striking last week. So for me, I'm all the way in on Sean Brady. All the way in.
I will say besides John Jones, like you mentioned, it's been hard. It's hard for me to think of an American star, in recent history. Like the first person that comes to mind is like Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. But those guys, they're not like the
Never.
face, and the trash talk isn't really. Sean Brady's got a talent for it. He's got a knack for it. The stuff that he's been saying this week and posting.
And the only thing that we were missing from those guys that you listed, they're popular, but they've never been champ, right?
Yeah.
I think that Sean Brady can be the champ. So that's where I think that's what I think will separate him separate him from the rest. Also, dope tattoos.
Yeah, fair
And
enough.
I'm also not understating that. Conor McGregor has cool tattoos. What did Donald Trump say in the White House? I like your fighter with tattoos.
Fair enough.
Sometimes that's what people notice.
In terms of and I think I've got your opinion here on is because I know you said last week that whoever wins this fight, this was a number one contender fight. I am pretty confident that your answer is the same. Yes, Sean Brady deserves the title shot. Yes.
Even more so now. I think Sean Brady has to get the title shot. I'm Rachmanov. Why even do it? Why even give Rachmanov the title shot? Give it to Brady. Brady's ready to go. Brady's ready to fight tomorrow. He'll fight in July.
Yeah. I he might.
No, he took no damage
Yeah.
to beat the brakes off of Leon, and we could talk about Leon. He's in rough spot, but
Yeah, right before we get to Leon, I just want to get your opinion on because I know you're a big grappling guy. That grappling performance was just absolutely outstanding. Like
Paul
from
Felder always has talked about his guillotines from Mount, and it's just crazy to me that he's able to get his hand under the head and then hide his hand by his hip and grab onto his hip and then just like push his hips forward to get the choke. He doesn't even need to get a gable grip or anything.
yeah.
It's really impressive the way that he's able to do it, and I'm so in.
Yeah, I mean, he was
So
going for finishes the entire time, like, even in that half
yep,
guard, kinda doing, like, a flop, getting that, figure four grip and going for it. He was just keeping Leon on his toes while on his
yep.
back, for pretty much, the entire fight, floating around up top in the turtle position. Really
Floating
good
was amazing.
stuff. Really
Floating
good.
was
But let's talk about Leon. I sense you're not very optimistic about what is next for him. Let's talk a little bit about that. Do you think that there's any chance he gets back into the title picture?
never, never. I mean, maybe a short notice spot where they're really desperate. Like we've seen Hanato Moicano fight for the lightweight belt. So like, and would I have ever said that's possible? No. Anything that like a built up card built around Leon to fight for a title, no way. I think Leon's gonna have to really think about what he's willing to do here. He never learned how to stop takedowns. He never really learned how to grapple. He could take a back, but that's about it. What's next for him? Kind of would you want to see him fight Kamaru again, or do you want to feed him to Joaquin Buckley? Like
I feel like you gotta give him a striker at this point, like,
Buckley's gonna take him down. He's so easy to take down, man.
it's just such a crazy contrast because, like, I mean, in that first Kamaru fight, yeah, it's a lot of the same, that obviously barring the head kick at the end, which was awesome. But, that first Kamaru fight for the first 4.5 rounds, uh, Leon's last fight against Bilal, and this one against Sean Brady, the grappling just really didn't look great. But somehow he got that win over Kamaru Usman and looked convincing in it. So it's really just bizarre. It's like, it's kind of brings up the questions like, is it just like when Leon feels good on a given night, does he do well, or is there just I don't know, maybe it was just a good day for him in that second Kamaru fight or third, I guess you would say.
I bet Colby Covington to beat him in for the belt.
There's
And
another grappler, yeah. It's
another grappler, but a grappler that didn't grapple in that fight, which is
yeah,
really confusing. So
yeah.
I don't know. Do Ian Machado Gary? I'd watch that.
And there's the gym too, because the two of them used to train at Killcliff, I believe. Yeah, so there's that sort. I think that would be a good one. Another name that I've heard is like MVP. It's a little bit of a step down, I would say, in terms of like he was just the number one ranked fighter in the world, Leon. So
I asked MVP that when I've interviewed him, and I asked him that. He said he'd only fight MVP in England for the belt.
or Leon.
Leon MVP would only fight Leon in England for the belt.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what he told me. So and
I like that Gary fight. That's a good shout. I think
yeah,
that's a good shout.
Gary, that's the fight.
Yeah.
That's the fight.
But in the co-main event, we also I'm trying to like play it up. No, we had a little bit of a snoozer, didn't we, Eric? Unfortunately.
terrible, man. Carlos Ulberg, the light heavyweight division and heavyweight divisions are terrible right now. Like 170 is loaded with talent in the UFC. Light heavyweight and heavyweight, there's nothing there. Like Ulberg looked awful. It was just a leg kick fight against Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz was able to eat the couple punches that Ulberg was able to land, but Ulberg, man, like what are you gonna do with him? What are you gonna do with him? I mean, Yuri Prohaska versus Carlos Ulberg is probably the fight to make, but man, Ulberg really disappointed there. It was leg kick, leg kick, leg kick, whole fight. They both were able to eat them, and the fight really nothing happened the whole fight.
Yeah, I mean, Olberg's kinda like he was that one last guy, that, Pereira hadn't faced in that top echelon at light heavyweight. So, I mean, he didn't have to do too much to really get himself like, "Yes, you're next for a title shot," but I feel like he had to do more than what he did. It's definitely not a definite "you're next" kinda deal. It's kind of up in the air. And then as far as Jan Blachowicz, it's just, really.
Older, there's really not a whole lot you could do with him at this
Yeah.
point. He's never gonna fight for a title. He's getting old. He's lost 3 in a row or 2 in a row, and then 1 was a draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's not going anywhere.
It's unfortunate. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's ready to shut the door on it just yet, but, I mean, they'll take care of him. He'll
I
he'll
mean,
get
hey, he's
something in.
still a good fighter. He can
Yeah,
still make
definitely, definitely. I mean, there's still, tread on the tires, as they say.
he's worth keeping around, but if we're talking about competitors at light heavyweight to win the title, Jan Blachowicz just isn't one.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we have to see what happens in terms of Olberg, with of course, the Pereira fight and Ankalaev, that rematch. Uh, Depending on what happens, maybe that could shift it. Styles make fights, who knows? But yeah, we'll see what happens with Carlos Olberg Yuri. That'll be a great fight. If Yuri wins that fight, like you said a few weeks ago, Yuri Prohaska could be fighting for a title in
He
2025.
was the biggest winner of Ankalaev beating Pereira. He was the biggest winner. Bigger winner than Ankalaev was Yuri Prohaska.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Alrighty, so I think that's a pretty good recap of last weekend. We'll do a little bit more in the quick hit section, but let's look towards this weekend. We're moving from London, England, back to the Americas in Mexico. UFC Mexico, headlined by Brandon Moreno versus Steve Urseg. That card starts at 4 p.m. for the prelims, 7 p.m. for the main card. Of course, the feature bout at flyweight, Brandon Moreno, former champion, Steve Urseg, former title challenger at 125. It's a pretty good fight. I mean, flyweights, they're very, very rarely not entertaining. So, Eric, what do you think about that fight?
Brandon Moreno is awesome. I've interviewed Brandon Moreno. I've bet on Brandon Moreno a ton. I'm interested to see what he has left in the tank. When I interviewed him prior or right after the Sphere card, he was very upset that he wasn't able to fight for the Mexico Independence Day Sphere card. So this is kind of his turnaround, his going back home in Mexico City. Huge fight for him. All of these fights are at elevation, I should add. That
Oh,
these fights are at 7,000 feet above sea level.
I mean, yeah, we know how that Salt Lake City card pans out sometimes. It makes things rough. So,
I mean, altitude sickness is real. That is going, if these fighters haven't been training at altitude, like Brandon Moreno, I'm sure has been training at altitude. He lives in Mexico. I would be shocked if he hasn't training at Mexico City. Some of these fighters that aren't training at elevation, they are live to gas out. Get ready.
fair enough. That's a good shout. So let's go into our fights to watch. Of course, Scott is not here, so I will give you his bet in his stead. He is picking Christian Rodriguez, taking on Melquizayo Costa, is I believe how you would say it if you were Brazilian. But for
Nice.
yeah, thank you. For Americans, Melquizayo Costa. Eric, what do you got?
Kevin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. I think it's a really interesting fight. I'm not sure if Kevin Gastelum's toast yet. I mean, he's in middleweight. See if he's in shape. He didn't look great in the pictures that I saw, but I'm interested to see what he looks like when he's doing the weight cut and stuff like that. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Joe Pyfer, I'm very interested to see what he looks like at middleweight. I think that he is a bona fide finisher, and I think that he could fit really well into the UFC's plans.
Alrighty, cool, cool, cool. So before we get into your three bets in 3 minutes, before we round out this card, let's get into Scott's event rating. This one, was a little bit low, but I've got his message in front of me right now. I could explain some of it. Uh, the event rating is a 5, which is on not in a good way. It's not in like the top 5%. It is in the bottom 5%. Strong main event. Continue. Sorry.
That's not fair. This is
I
a solid.
I would tend to agree. So some of the weighting, um, this is some of the explanation behind it. So Scott's weighting takes, of course, into account the main event and the co-main event, weighted more towards those. Uh, he was saying Gastelum versus Pyfer would make way more sense for a co-main event, which I think we could both agree with, right? But a lot of the fighters outside of the top 40 world MMA rankings, as well as really not a whole lot in the top 120 as well. But one thing that is important to note, because you can't quantify excitement in a fighter or how well known they might be, say like Raul Rosas Jr., for instance, like he's on the card, he's always fun to watch, gets a lot of eyes. There's no way you can really quantify that. So while you and I might be excited for the card, this is not what that event rating is trying to capture. But I will agree with you, Eric. It's not as bad of a card from a excitement perspective, but from a talent perspective, perhaps.
All of these fights in the main card aren't expected to go to decision. That's what the UFC wants. They want all of these fights to end in a finish. So that's where the thought process is of the structure of the card.
Yes. Well, talking about,
I
sorry.
mean, Luffy Godin's isn't on the main card for a reason.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, talking about finishes and decisions, you're a betting guy. Before we get into your 3 bets in 3 minutes, how did we do on last week's?
Yeah, not great. I had Leon Edwards to win, which didn't go well. Sean Brady beat the brakes off him. Jan Blachowicz should have had the decision in my view. Honestly, I'm not going to call it a robbery because it wasn't, but it was really close. Had him plus 550 by decision, and he did not get the decision. So bummer. We had done well prior to that, but hoping for some better results this week here as we head to Mexico.
Yes. So, Eric, we're hoping for some better results. I will hand it off to you to get your 3 bets in 3 minutes. Clock is ticking.
All right. Yeah, so all right, here we go. Brandon Moreno versus Steve Ursay, main event. I'm not heavy on Steve Ursay. He's lost 2 in a row. That Pantoja fight where he shot for the takedown in round 5, I had a lot of questions there. He got knocked out by Kai Kara of France. I don't love his striking. I don't love his cardio. I don't love his grappling. I think that Brandon Moreno is better than him everywhere here. I think that Brandon Moreno is going to come in here in awesome shape. I think he's got a hometown crowd. I think that Brandon Moreno is going to take this to a decision, and he's going to win the decision. I like his volume. I like his grappling upside, and I don't like Steve Ursay. Honestly, as a fighter, I think Brandon Moreno is even a good bet on the money line for parlays. For the second bet, we're going to the co-main event, and I know we talk about this all the time, right? And the UFC wants main card finishes. Manel Torres versus Drew Dober would profile as that in theory. Manel Torres, every UFC fight that he's had has ended in the first round. Now, where that gets interesting is that Dober has had most of his fights go into the second round recently. So each of the last 2 fights, Dober's gone in the second round, including 4 of his last 6. So for me, I'm going to have this fight starts round 2 at minus 110. You get on Fanatics. And then fight goes the distance as plus 470. If you're looking for a long shot, if you think the fight's going to go in the second round, again, these fights are at elevation. These guys are going to gas. Drew Dober loves throwing those crazy hooks, but he might get tired at some point. Don't discount that. And then for the last one, how about Raul Rosas Jr., our boy? He started in the UFC when he was 17. How about him to win by submission against Vince Morales? Vince Morales, I don't want to call him a quitter because that isn't fair. He's a UFC fighter. But for me, the last 2 fights, he should have won or come close to winning. Against Elijah Smith, specifically his last time out, he's 0-2 in the UFC. He lost the decision to Elijah Smith. I thought that was a really bad performance that he could have won at any time, and he just didn't. He didn't put in the necessary work to get over the hump. There was many times where Smith was begging to give him that fight. So anyway, Morales is the best grappler he's ever faced. He's been submitted twice in his career, including to Josh Wick. Nowhere near as good of a grappler as Raul Rosas Jr. So for me, I would Raul Rosas Jr. by submission plus 285. I think, again, at elevation, Vince Morales is live to quit here, especially under the pressure. You can even take a longer shot at rounds 2 and 3 submission for Rosas Jr., but I think he gets it done here.
Alrighty, there we go, Eric. So that is next week, or sorry, that is this weekend kind of wrapped up. Before we wrap up and go into the fight assignment this week in MMA, let's just get some quick hits out there. Molly Meatball last weekend retired. Molly McCann, of course, her full name. Great nickname. She laid her gloves down in the octagon and said that, with the performances that she's been having up against, this past weekend was someone on short notice. It's just not the performances that she's looking to get from herself. So she retired. The sport was better with her in it, but she said she'd still like to stick around in it in some vein.
I
Uh,
doubt it. He'll be back.
you think so? We'll see. She's entertaining. She's a big name, so I could definitely see it. Um, Ilia Topuria has a new nickname. He dropped Matador, El Matador, and picked up La Leyenda, which is Spanish for the legend. Uh, Eric, yay or nay on that name change?
I don't know. We've seen Pretty Boy Floyd and then Money Mayweather. We've seen it happen before. Who cares? I just want to see him fight. He's the most exciting fighter right now, I think, in the UFC.
I hate it. I do.
Yeah.
El Matador was so much cooler. La Leyenda, it's just like doesn't sound that great, and I don't know, man. It's just like I know it plays into his character because he wants to be Connor,
Yeah.
and he's just like, I'm the best ever, but I don't like it. Uh, actually, I think Eric, you could speak to this next one, the
Yeah.
Artem Vakitov.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this one, Glory kickboxing champion Artem Vakitov won his Dana White Contender Series fight by knockout in like impressive fashion, and he straight up is like, I don't want to come to the UFC. They negotiate with the UFC, and then the UFC offers them 10 and 10. You get 10 to show and 10 to win. And from Arnold's perspective, he's like, why would I take that when I can get more from any other fight promotion, PFL, whomever? So he's not coming to the UFC. And I think this is a part, and we could talk about this another time, it's part of a broader discussion of what is the UFC's plan with talent? Are they okay just letting any like talent go? Or like, what's the plan? Because I understand that they want, they only pay 20% of the revenue to fighters, but that there needs to be more flexibility there. That's all I'll say there. It's not great. It's not good, but we'll see. Maybe that's a negotiation tactic.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens on that front, and I definitely agree. This could be a topic for a larger discussion. I know you and I were talking earlier before the call about some other instances of this happening, so that's look forward to that. Beyond that, Aaron Blanchfield versus Macy Barber will be the main event of UFC Apex on May 31st. And then also just a quick shout if for any PFL fans to mark your calendars for next week. That is when the PFL tournaments begin. So with that out of the way, Eric, it's time for my homework.
I hope you did your homework because it was a fun homework assignment this weekend. The undisputed, undefeated Chael Sonnen retained his undefeated streak now. He beat, he took down Anderson Silva for 4 rounds. And then, yeah, Jake, what do you think? What do you think about that ending? Yeah, I'll let you take that.
So I would be shocked or I would imagine you would be shocked if I said I had not seen that finish before. It's like, come on. But that was the only part of the fight I had seen. I did not watch those first 4 rounds prior to this assignment, and it was crazy. Chael looked like the best middleweight in the world at the time. I mean, Anderson Silva was, I've always thought of him as that guy, during that era. Chael outclassed him in that fight. He had the edge in the wrestling, and he kept Anderson Silva on his back with ground and pound. I saw someone do like Chael do a discombobulate move while on the ground, which is the first time I've ever seen that in MMA. And it just looked like a foregone conclusion. Even like the announcers, Joe's talking about it. Is it too early for him to start celebrating? And it was. Chael Anderson out of nowhere throws up that triangle, and it was picture perfect. And even with Chael defending it, kind of came in with a little bit of a Brazilian tap, but it count. A Brazilian tap counts in my opinion.
Definitely a Brazilian tap. Definitely a Brazilian tap. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can get into fight your assignment for the day. But yeah, so we'll get into your homework for the week. I'm assigning Korean Zombie Chan Sung Jung fighting Leonard Garcia. I haven't seen this fight in a long time. I have to rewatch it. I believe that this fight was on the WEC card when Aldo fought Faber back in 2010. But yeah.
Awesome. I might have to watch that one too. Or that could be a future assignment. How about that? And then I believe Korean Zombie is also in our this week in MMA. Actually, do you mind if I take this one, Eric? I
Go
because
ahead.
I love, I love my jujitsu. Korean Zombie. Yesterday, uh, dating back to 2011, gets the first and easily the most iconic Twister submission in UFC history. He gets that thing. Joe Rogan's on the mic, who's very good friends with Eddie Bravo, who kind of popularized the Twister submission. You don't see too many of those these days, Eric. I mean, what do you think? You gotta love it, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been hit with a twister submission by a couple black belts.
I've never felt it. I've heard it's
Oh god,
terrible.
it's the and like the black belts are always trying to get it just so that they can show it.
Yeah.
You know, they're practicing it and they're practicing on me, freaking blue belt,
Oh
and
God.
and you could see like when they grab your arm and they reach it over, they give you a big smile as they do it.
Uh,
Just look at their face because like you're like getting twisted, and you see like a big smile as they pull your arms over. I'm like, ah, yeah,
yeah. Not too pretty. Um,
no.
alrighty. Well, I think that kind of rounds out this episode of Against the Cage, Eric. You got anything left?
I'm good on my end. Watch the fights this weekend. Really good fights. Let's make some money. And that's actually on cable TV this week. So we actually get the opportunity to watch it live, cable broadcast without delay. So live betting will be abundant, especially for me.
There we go. There we go. Alrighty, Eric. I'll catch you next week. Scott, as always, good luck with the recovery, and we'll see you next week.